Hello, and welcome back to Typically Unique. I'm Kim Aponte, and I'm here with my husband, Carlos.
Hello.
So we just ended episode 16, I believe. And that was a pretty emotional one.
Yeah.
And, we were talking about
Well,
dealing with things with Aiden.
yeah, so we had the loss of probably Aiden's closest friend in the hospital. I really wanted to reach out to Aiden and maybe have some conversation, about that. And there was really no emotion around it. We really weren't going to have those conversations. He didn't want to have the conversation. I think you actually said, we probably talked to Aiden about it, but, he wasn't offering any of his feelings or emotions, about
Right.
that. And so seeing that reaction, to that, I think raised a couple red flags. But there were things that were happening pretty much even before we went into the hospital with Aiden that were some red flags, and I think individually not such a big thing, right?
Right.
But very early on, we noticed that, you actually kind of pinpointed it one time. I don't know if you could tell the story or not, but he was with a second or fifth grade teacher, probably second grade teacher, and had like an incident with the teacher. And
It was third grade.
third grade, okay, yeah.
And they were trying a certain kind of food or something. And he was not having it. He would not try it. He did not want to try it. And I think there was a consequence for that in that classroom. And he came home after that day and was done with that teacher, just done.
And done to Aiden is,
I hate you.
yeah, and different, right? I mean, I remember him getting a yearbook one year, and there was a kid that rode the bus with him on the next street over.
Oh, that gave him a hard time.
That would give him a hard time. I wouldn't say bullying, but just, giving him a hard time or whatever. Or just
It's not nice.
what Aiden would call, don't annoy me, right? You're annoying me. And that could just be, hey, what are you doing today? Or why are you, bringing that lunch to school? And where'd you get that jacket, right? That could be annoying to Aiden. And he got the yearbook and spent the time from top to bottom on that kid's picture in a pen, not a marker, to
Crossing it out.
cross
Yeah.
out his picture. And I was like, whoa, that's weird. That's intense. And when I asked him, I said, well, why are you doing this? And he's like, he annoys me. I don't like him. He's annoying. So Aiden would use some terminology like, don't annoy me, things like that. He would literally write off people. And he would do some things along the way. Like my mother was very, she babied the heck out of him, and anything that he wanted, my brother would go over to my mother's house and
Called him the king.
yeah, and Aiden would be sitting there watching TV with my mom, his grandma, in his underwear, eating potato chips, like a whole bag to himself or something. And my brother would come over like, you are
What
the
heck?
king.
Yeah, the king.
And that was his nickname for forever, because my mom treated him
spoiled.
like the king. She she spoiled him. She loved him. And he didn't have that reciprocal relationship. It wasn't like oh, I love my grandma, and things like that. He never really expressed some of those emotions, and it was, I don't know, it was always kind of weird because Carly would be like that, right? There's a story with Carly. So you would see we had two kids, 13 months apart, so we were watching them, grow up, and we would see the distinguishable differences. There was one time that my mom was watching the kids. Kim had to go to school. I think I was working third shift or something. And my mom came over. Kim was running around, and she left the house and didn't give Carly a hug and a kiss. And then what happened?
Running late. Oh, yeah. I left the house without giving her a kiss goodbye. I had to go to a meeting. I had to get there on time. So I'm sitting in this meeting, and the people that are in the room with me are kind of all looking at me, and like someone's like, hey, there's someone out in the hallway for you. And I go out there, and my mother-in-law had to bring Carly to where I was so I could give her a hug and a kiss. It was so sweet. That was so sweet.
I mean, literally, she wanted that affection. Yeah. She needed that affection. And Aiden was the total opposite.
She was so upset that I had left without I felt horrible. Oh my gosh, but I was just, running out the door.
Yeah, and Aiden would be the total opposite of that. So you look at that and say, wow, is that, you want that, right? You feel bad that maybe you did that in the moment, but oh my God, how sweet. How does that land on your heart as a mother to know that, my mother-in-law had to bring my daughter to school for me to give her a hug and a kiss because, she needs that connection, and you have the opposite, with another child, and you're like, are we dealing with two extremes here?
Yeah.
Or, and that's okay. We all react and act differently, but we just started noticing that there would be...
And we couldn't understand why.
Right.
That was the big thing, because we weren't doing anything different with the two of them. So
exactly.
The big question was just why.
And there were other, instances, we talked about, a little bit how I think after that third grade incident is when Aiden really started telling you, and
that's when he started putting it on me.
Saying,
yeah, I hate you. I hope you'll die.
Yeah. And, and that would be for as much as waking him up 5 minutes early, asking him to go to the store, with her, which would be a nightmare, right? If they would go to the grocery store together, would be like a nightmare. So there were all these little things that we had conversations about through his childhood, especially when he was diagnosed with Bruton's, right? When he was diagnosed with Bruton's, we were like, look, this sucks for a kid to have to go through this every 3 weeks for the rest of his life, spending a half to a whole day getting this IVIG infusion, kind of knocking you out, putting you to sleep, so you lose a whole day. And you have to do this every day for the rest of your life. To look forward to that every 3 weeks, oh my God, it's next week. I got to do this thing again, right? So all these little behavioral things were like, this kid's got a tough break, And if he's got to go through that, I'll put up with him saying, I hate you, I wish you would die. Which I never understood, by the way.
Well, right. And that same day that maybe he might have said that, I would tuck him into bed at night and lay down with them and read 2 chapters of Harry Potter, and we'd laugh and have a good time and, say goodnight, I love you. And, you'd have that end of it too.
Yeah. And, I think we look at that a little bit differently, but Kim doing that for him, I think, was the absolute best thing, because it gave them a connection that I think he needed. I think she modeled that, to him and for him. I always feared that if she read to him, then that's what he wanted, because he was into those Harry Potter books like you could not imagine. If she didn't read that to him, it wasn't like, okay, Mom, thanks for reading me that book for the last 32 nights in a row, and you not doing it tonight, I love and appreciate you, take a night off. No, it would be, I hate you, I wish you would die. Like, that quick. And that, to me, was like, she was providing something that he coveted, he wanted, I think he needed, And kudos to her for doing that. But if she didn't provide that, she was his mortal enemy in that moment. And I could never understand. I'm like, dude, she just read to you for 32. She hasn't finished her lesson plans yet. She hasn't graded these tests yet. But she's coming in here every night to read these stories to you. And the one night that she doesn't, she is ridiculed for not doing it. I mean, do you see it that way? I mean, am I was just looking at that from...
No, I don't know. I don't want to remember that stuff, so I don't think I didn't hold on to that because it didn't feel good, you know. But yeah, it happened, and we're sharing it because we're trying to figure out why.
Yeah. So at some point in the hospital, so when we got to the hospital, Aiden was already dealing with this Bruton's thing. Brutal, right? Him getting this AML diagnosis, double brutal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is ridiculous,
terrifying.
And we're at the point, look, if our son's a little salty, he's a little salty.
Right.
Right? And okay, so be it. But it really got to the point where I was like, oh my goodness, and my mom would be up there sometimes. And, my mom's not with us anymore, but my mom used to work at the emergency room. And I want to tell this little story about my mom, too, for a second. But because maybe it's how I feel and how I was looking at Aiden. But my mom used to work in the emergency room in this small town that we live in. And I went away to school, and after school, I played basketball in school, so I was gone for 4 or 5 years. And then I moved to Chicago, lived in Chicago, worked in Chicago for another 4 or 5 years. So I came back like 10 years later, and this is when I met Kim, re-met Kim. But I came back like 10 years later. My mom's favorite place to go, because it was right next door to our childhood home, was Perkins. And
it's like a pancake house.
Yeah, like a breakfast place.
Breakfast,
yeah, a place called Perkins. So it used to be a chain. I don't even know if it's around anymore.
Yeah.
But so we went to Perkins one day, and my mom said, hey, let's go to Perkins, because I just come home. And I said, all right, why don't you grab a table? I'm going to go wash my hands, and I'll meet you at the booth or the table wherever we're at, So she goes, gets a table. I go to the restaurant, I wash my hands. I come back. As I'm walking into the restaurant, I see some guy who's not my father hugging my mom and like rocking back and forth. I mean, they're in a hug. I walk up to him like, hey, what's going on? And
he really would have that reaction. Yeah, that's how he does.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, what are you doing? Get off my mom. And the guy was like, turned to me, and I kind of knew him a little bit, maybe when I was younger. And he's like, your mom saved my life. And and I've heard other people kind of say that, about my mom, because she worked in the emergency room, and he's like, no, really, she saved my life. She goes, he said, I was crushed by a forklift or something at work, and my family wasn't there, and I was in so much pain, and I thought I was going to die. Your mom sat with me, she was working, literally held my hand, wouldn't leave my side because I thought I was going to die. And I was telling her all this stuff to tell my family, because they weren't there yet. And the look on his face just broke me. I mean, he truly felt like she was there for him. And the one thing about my mother, she used to get in trouble in the emergency room because she used to yell at the emergency room doctors and say, give them something for the pain. I don't want to see them suffer. Don't let them suffer. And they would be like, well, we can't give them anything for the pain until we fully diagnose what's going on, and then we can try to make them so that, well, then get in the room. And she would grab them, bring them into the room to take care of the patient so they could get the, morphine or whatever they needed to.
Right. She didn't want people in pain.
She did not want people in. So my mother was known around town. Like, I still to this day, I could hear a story or two about my mother, and how she treated people in the emergency room, and she really cared about them, right? So another childhood story, again, just to link all this stuff together. when I was in high school, I had surgery for a deviated septum. And so they went in, did the surgery, packed my nose full of stuff. And the doctor had told me I will be back in 2 days to take the packing out, and then you can go home. So I had to stay in the hospital for like 2 days. Well, 2 days show up. He doesn't show up. It's like Saturday. Well, I know he's not going to be there on Sunday. So I had to wait till Monday for him to come. So 4 days after the surgery. I apparently went off on the nurses and said, hey, this guy lied to me. Someone get in here and take this packing out. I want to go home. I got this headache, like this big, and it wasn't going away. And my mother got wind of that, came into the room, scolded me, and said, don't you ever talk to anybody like that, ever. And I want you to apologize. And she lined up 3 or 4 nurses that had to come in the room one by one, and I had to apologize to them profusely for the way that I behaved, because it wasn't their fault, but I was taking it out on them. And so that's how I was raised. That's what I was, hey, these are caregivers, right? And I was like trying to tell Aiden those same things in the hospital. Like, these people are here to help you. They're here to, for lack of a better term, save your life.
Yep.
And he's like, I don't care. And it would just blow me away, and my mother would sit there and see his indifference about that, and it would just crush her.
Yeah.
And she would cry profusely about, why does he talk like that? Why does he, and we were like, we don't care how he talks. We just want him to be cured, at this moment. But it made us start thinking, right, that maybe something else is going on. And I think one of the things that, so along the way, we lost the teacher. The teacher was gone. Again, child life specialist would come around every once in a while. She knew it was something that Aiden wanted to do, Doctors, as Kim read that one post, doctors would be, kind of.
Well, and we gave consequences as he was growing up. It's not like the kid never had consequences for things.
And what do you think the consequences were?
Well, not when he was calling me those names, and I guess that's why we're talking about this now. We're not perfect. I'm not perfect. I know I didn't handle everything perfectly. He could have had spoiled kid syndrome. I don't know. I mean, that could be it.
I think that, I was like, wow, should we like spank him? Should he be spanked? And we were like, I'm a big guy, so I was afraid to like put my hands on my kids, or anything like that, even though I took a spanking or two when I was younger. But I was like, that's not for me. I don't want to be that, person. And we did some timeouts. We took some things away.
So there was a time when Carly and Aiden, they would not quit fighting. They were fighting all the time, and I just got so sick of it. And I think this is probably the time when like the internet started to have things more available, and so I saw some things to maybe try out, and we like cleared the bedrooms out. Like we took we left a bed in there, and that was it. And I'm like, you guys start getting along, and then you can start earning some things back. Like,
and they didn't care.
Even took that approach.
Yeah,
so
and he didn't care.
It didn't change anything.
Yeah, he didn't care. But I think we never knew what, consequences or punishment would ever work. None of it ever really did. But that led me to, because I knew if I had a consequence for something, I wouldn't do something, either it was, punishment by my parents or spiritual punishment, whatever, was in my head at the natural consequence. Yeah. I mean, I had that, little thing in my head, but man, he didn't care. And, so at some point I approached Kim and I said, look, there are a bunch of things going on. And I gave a bunch of examples of things that I was like, look, there's got to be something here, because Carly responds to certain things, right? Aiden is not. there's got to be something different here. Aiden's exhibiting some behaviors that I'm not familiar with or have seen in my lifetime. So, there's got to be something. So I brought this to Kim and I said, hey, let's have somebody check him out.
Yeah. What can we do to find out what's going on?
Yeah. And I think we had a debate for a while. It wasn't immediate. Okay, next day, let's go have him checked out.
Well, because I was like, oh my God, can we just cure him of the cancer? Like that was, again, just the number one focus.
Right. So. And again, it was the way we thought when he was younger. If this isn't interfering with him being, moving about in society, then let's not poke the bear, right? Let's just keep it going. If it's not affecting his treatment for AML, let's not poke the bear. But it got so bad.
Or let's not just add another thing on top of what we're already trying to deal with, I guess.
Right.
That's my thinking.
But it got so bad that I thought, look, we're at a world-renowned hospital, right? Mm-hmm. That has all of these extra things that they are providing to these kids on the floor. Services, thank you. Things, yeah. I'm not supposed to be saying things.
We're not saying things, we say services.
These services, I'm sure that they have these services here. So it took a week of convincing, but I think we said, look, let's just see what they got.
Right.
Let's see what that is. So we did get somebody from Rainbow, not this floor in particular, another department, mm-hmm. another service area. Mm-hmm. But we had somebody come to the floor.
Talk to us first.
We had to fill out some forms and questionnaires, and I think we had an interview separately, right? I think we interviewed separately.
Well, because we were never there together. No,
that's true.
So
yeah,
I would have to be.
Yeah, but we interviewed separately. And then I remember being in the room, like I wasn't sitting next to Aiden, but I remember being in the room, maybe behind my curtain or something, in the room when this person was interviewing Aiden, and he wasn't having any of it.
Yeah.
He wasn't having any of it, and was really kind of getting funky with her, And afterwards, I was like, you see what I mean? Like, this is what we're going through, and she's like, yeah, I mean, she was real professional. Yeah, this is what's going on, and took all this information, threw it in a cement mixer and threw out some stuff that was completely foreign to us, which was, I know he was diagnosed on the autism spectrum, mm-hmm. but there was also something else about, they
called it a pervasive developmental disorder. So it was so vague. They couldn't pinpoint an exact diagnosis of anything, just that it was, definitely something developmentally. And I went back in my journal and was looking at it, and it can affect it could affect cognition. It could affect social, which seemed to be more with Aiden, mm-hmm. the social aspect of it. It wasn't his intelligence. And mm-hmm. There was a third thing that also wasn't what was affecting him. But yeah, there were 3 different parts of your person that it could affect. And with him, it was mostly the social aspect of it.
So we thought, after this person came in and did all this, we thought, okay, well, we got a bit of a diagnosis. Mm-hmm. So now they're going to jump in, pass out,
tell us what to do.
Treatment, pill,
Here's
regimen,
Here's the
plan, right? And we never got the plan.
No.
We never got the plan. And that person who was coming in and working with Aiden was going to have some subsequent conversations, and he was more funky with her the second time she came in, the third time she came in,
brutal.
To the point where she just stopped coming.
Because I think it was supposed to be talk therapy. It was just supposed to be therapy, right? To talk through things. And
he didn't have any of it.
You have to participate in that for that to work. And
that didn't happen. So,
but then they just quit. Like, you can't just quit.
And what was this Asperger's thing? Like, what were we supposed to do with that? right? Was that talk therapy too? Or were we supposed to, change certain things? Do we need head canceling, noise canceling headphones? I see kids with Asperger's wear. What are we supposed to do? Nothing. We got nothing.
Yeah.
We got a diagnosis and nothing. Mm-hmm. And that was the beginning of us trying to attempt to utilize the mental health system.
Yeah, that was the very first
attempt.
And
we got nothing.
And I wasn't focused on that at that time.
No, but I was.
I was not. I just wanted the cancer to get cured. That's all I was focused on.
I was, because I just thought that this wasn't, Aiden's going to make it, right? That was my thought. There's not going to be a negative outcome. And when he makes it, he is going to be able to handle these emotions that are causing him to act out in this way. So he is going to be a fully functioning member of society, interacting with people, even those who annoy him, in the most special way, and be one of those people that if they see him at Perkins, 10 years down the road, they're going to be like, you are such a good person, and have that feeling of him.
See, and I had done way more reading about AML than you did, so I knew the statistics, and I was very concerned about that. I wasn't sure that he was going to make it through it, so it was that first. That had to be the first step first for me.
Right. But I think for us, the moral of that mental health story is that was our first attempt, whether it worked out or it didn't. And maybe it was best that it didn't, because we got to focus on curing him from AML.
Right.
But
we still asked for help and didn't receive a good, consistent plan. And when you're dealing with mental health, behavioral issues, you can't give up when you're the provider. And you can't just walk away.
And for me, would we have been dealing with that at year 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 if we would have done something much more better at this time when we reached out? Okay, it's on us that at the beginning we didn't. But when we did, he was young enough.
But then I still feel like it's on us to not have pushed it. I always take ownership for that kind of stuff.
Push what?
That they're not allowed to give up. Like, we should have been where are you? What are you doing? What's the plan? What are we supposed to do? But I didn't have the strength. It took everything out of me just to deal with the AML.
Yeah, I think we did for a little bit, but it was just constantly, next week, or maybe we'll stop by, and then that was it. I never saw him again.
Yeah.
So that's, I think that takes us to round 5, right?
Round 5.
We're going to be going home here in a little bit in round 4. It was a long one. We're going to jump into round 5, which is the last scheduled round for his AML treatment.
Yeah, and after round 4, because it was such a doozy, I was like looking at round 5, like, oh my gosh, what is about to happen?
But we also knew that proverbial light was at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
When that ANC, that absolute neutrophil count, hit 200, that last time, we were going home for good. Yeah. So that was the hope going into round 5. So we will hit that one next.
Yep. I'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.